Hello again. And last time we were here, we took a rectangular prism that was 24 cubic inches. First we found the volume, and then what we did is we divided that prism into two parts. Then made an equation to represent that volume in a different way. So the last time, matter of fact, let me go ahead and put it back on the prism. So this is the prism that we took, and we divided this prism into two parts and made an equation to represent those two parts in a different way. So the last time we was here, I asked you a question. What are some other ways that we can take this prism and break it into other parts and make an equation for it? So everybody should have had an opportunity to think about it. Okay, so how would Mr. Johnson take this rectangular prism and break it into equal parts to make an equation that would still represent the same volume, or 24 cubic inches? So I think one way that I would break up this rectangular prism would be this. So I think this time I am going to, I'm going to break it. Excuse me. Nope, I think I can keep it on. Fix this up just a little bit more. Sorry. There we go. So what have you noticed? I have just broken our rectangular prism into 4 equal parts. Matter of fact, let's turn it over just for a minute. There we go. Now that I have broken up our rectangular prism into 4 equal parts, what equation would I write for this? So take a look at it. What do you think? Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So first, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this first part. And before we go on, let's take a good look at our equation. For the first time we did it, first time we broke it up, we're going to record our length. Then we're going to record our width, I'm sorry. So what is the length of this particular part? This is our length. This is our width. So this is the longest part. That makes it our width. The shortest side is the width. So let's go ahead. Once again, each of these parts are 1 inches each on each edge. So let's go. 1, 2, 3. So this part is 3 inches wide. 3 inches long. What is our width? Width is from here to here, 1 inch, 2 inches. So it's 3 times 2. So that part was 3 times 2 inches. Let's go ahead and put some parentheses around it to show that that represents one particular part. So all of these pieces are 3 inches long and 2 inches wide. How many parts do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 parts. So our equation is going to be 3 times 2 times 4. Well, 3 times 2 times 4 equal 24 cubic inches. If I did it correctly, I should. So I think this time I do want to use my pencil. 3 times 2 equals 6. What is 6 times 4? 6 times 4 equals 24. 24 what? Since we're working with volume, finding the volume, 24 cubic inches. So 3 times 2 times 4 equals 24 cubic inches. Represents another way that I can take our rectangular prism and break it up to make an equation that still represents the same volume. Now, let's put it back together. Excuse me a minute, but tighten them up. There we go. Okay. Now, does anybody have any other ideas how I can take this rectangular prism and break it into equal parts to make an equation? Let's try this. So, I think this time I'm going to break it up. Excuse me. There. I'm going to break it up just like this. I'm going to break it up into 3 parts. 3 equal parts. Now remember, when you break up these parts, they have to be equal. And let me put them here on the side. There we go. They're all equal. They have the equal amount of cubes. Okay. Now, when you look at these 3 parts, what equation would I make up to represent what I have here and still have a volume of 24 cubic inches? What do you think I should write here on the board? Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and start with our first block. Matter of fact, let me move it over because I don't want to write on my table. This is a permanent marker. So let's look at this first one. Once again, which side is the length and which side is the width? If you said this side is the length, you are correct because the length is always along its side. If you said that this is the width, you are correct because the width is always the shortest side. So let's look at the length. Once again, each of these blocks are 1 inch on all sides. So let's go ahead and find the length. Ready, set, go. 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches. Now, what is the width? 1 inch, 2 inches. 4 times 2. And we'll put the parentheses around it because this represents the size of each one of those parts. So each part is 4 times 2. Once again, make sure when you separate them and split them into equal parts, make sure they are all the same size. Now, since this is 4 times 2, this is 4 times 2, this is 4 times 2, how many parts do I have? 1, 2, 3. So this is the equation for this, 4 times 2 times 3. Let's look again. 4 times 2 times 3. So what's 4 times 2 times 3? We did this correctly. It should equal 24 cubic inches. Let's see. Matter of fact, let me get my marker again. Excuse me. Oops. Oh well. 4 times 2 equals 8. What's 8 times 3? 8 times 3 is 24 cubic inches. So 4 times 2 times 3 equals 24 square inches, represents this set right here. So once again, I can take that rectangular prism Matter of fact, let me put it back together. There we go. And with this rectangular prism, at the moment, there are 3 ways I can split these into equal parts to still represent a volume of 24. 4 times 3 times 2 equals 24 cubic inches. 3 times 2 times 4 equals 24 cubic inches. Or 4 times 2 times 3 equals 24 cubic inches. Maybe you have found some other ways that you can represent this. Okay. So now let's go ahead and talk about what your assignment is going to be. We're going to just step in my living room for a minute, turn on my laptop. Here we go. So if you look on Google Classroom, this is your first assignment. This counts as a classroom grade. See if I can make it a little bit larger. Just a little bit. Oh, there. Too big. There we go. So your first assignment is called breaking up a prism. So when you look at this, there's 2 pages. Let's go over the first page. So for part 1, build a rectangular prism that is 2 cubes high, 3 cubes wide, and 5 cubes long. Write an expression that represents the volume of the prism. So here is your prism. Write an equation. Tell me what the volume is. Once again, you already know how to find the volume. Take the length, multiply by the width, and multiply by the height. Now, after you find the volume, look at it. Let me scroll back up a little bit. This has been divided into this. And it even gives us our example formula. Not formula, but equation for how you can represent this when you divide it. Now, after you do part 1, here's what you're going to do. Explore dividing the prism in different ways to match as many of the expressions as you can. So let's go back and look. When you look at this rectangular prism, what are some other ways that you would divide this? It's already shown you one way that you would divide this. Well, what are some other ways that you would use to divide this? It has also given you some formulas. So if I was to divide this, go back, into equal parts. Divide this into equal parts. How would I represent this? Or if I wanted to divide this into equal parts to represent this, how would it look? Or if I wanted to divide this into equal parts to represent this, how would it look? So, after you think about all the ways that you can divide this into equal parts, now this is already done for you, so don't do this one. I want you to think of some other ways that you would divide this into equal parts. After you do that, there are 4 boxes. I want you to write down 4 different ways that you would divide this into equal parts. And then after, you're going to write your expression or your equation. You're going to draw it. And then you're going to explain what you have written down. So let me see if I can type. Maybe I can type. Maybe for this row right here, I can make a drawing showing what 2 times 5 times 3 will look like. And then I would explain my drawing. Maybe for this second box, oops. Okay, let's try it again. There we go. So maybe for this second row, you're going to show me what 3 times 5 times 2 will look like in this box. so you're going to draw it out, and then you're going to explain it. Same thing. Let's say I want to take, in this box, maybe I want to do 5 times 3 times 2. I will draw what 5 times 3 times 2 looks like, and then I will explain my drawings. Now, you can use what you have up here. If you know any other ways that you can divide the rectangular prism back on up here on part 1, you can do that as well. Now I'm going to show you on the back page what you're going to do. Okay, so on the back page, on the second, I want you to look at this rectangular prism. When you look at this rectangular prism, if you can divide this in 3 different ways, how would you divide it? And then you're going to use this chart to show me how you would divide this in 3 different ways. So that's what you're going to do. Look at this. Think about how you would split this into 3 different ways. And then you're going to sketch it out here. So this is the first way, the second, and the third. Now these boxes right here, you don't have to, don't worry about those. So these 3 right here, omit that. You don't have to use these 3 down here. We're just going to worry about this and this chart. You're going to do the same thing for down here. Look at this rectangular prism. And when you look at this rectangular prism, if you could divide this, or if you split this in 3 different ways, how would you do it? So I want you to look at this rectangular prism. Think of 3 ways that you can that you would split it. And then fill out this chart. The number of layers is the number of layers is the number of parts. You're going to write down the number of cubes that are in each part, and then write down the volume. If you did correctly, the volume should be the same in all 3 of them. So, one more time. Take this. Think of 3 ways that you can split this into equal parts. Write down the number of parts for each time you do it. Write down the number of cubes in each part, and then write down the volume. Back in the back, the 3rd page, you don't have to do that as well. We're not going to worry about that. So one more time, what you're going to do, you're going to do part 1, top box. You're going to do this second part here. You are going to take this rectangular prism and divide them 3 different ways. You're going to do the fill in the chart. Do not do this part right here. Same thing. Look at this rectangular prism. Fill out the chart. Find 3 different ways to divide this into equal parts. And you do not have to do this 3rd page right here. Okay. So the instructions for submitting the assignment will be on Google Classroom. If you have any questions, just send me a message through Google Classroom, email, or Class Dojo. Hope everybody understood the lesson today. Once again, if you have any problems, just give me contact me. And the assignment will be due Tuesday evening. So hope everybody enjoyed the lesson, and you all have a great day.